Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Karen Wilcutz with the North Lake Tahoe Truckee Leadership Program. And normally during this time of the year, we would be teaching our leadership program, which is a 6-month program that teaches leadership skills, networking, public speaking, and also introduces different community topics in order to build stronger leaders. We decided this year that that a 6-month program might not be the best for the community, especially since we're hunkered down and having meetings via Zoom. But we did want to offer something to the community, so we've come up with our leadership skills workshops and decided to offer these that are specifically based on leadership skills. We went to a shorter format, so 2 hours. And decided to make them all free because, during a pandemic, money is always an issue for people. So I'm so glad to see you all here. We are ecstatic to see an awful lot of alumni have signed up. And also welcome to new community members who we haven't seen before. So you're going to get a taste of what we offer. We do plan to offer our leadership program again in 2022, so we'll keep you all updated on that. But for right now, what I'd like to do is, I'm on the wrong page too. I want to welcome Kim Webster from Odic Consulting. Kim is a wonderful asset to our community and a wonderful asset to our program. She and I have been talking for years, and we worked together last year. And she is going to get you all thinking about different what leadership means to you and how you can work that into your life. So, Kim, can you come on up? And I am going to stop sharing my screen.
All right, and I'm going to start sharing mine. Can you all hear me? Yeah, awesome. And I think I met some of you last year, but what were you saying, Karen?
Yeah, can I just tell you all, because of my a million broken bones, which I'm feeling all right now, I'm here, I'm going to go off video though, so I can move around a little bit. So bear with me, and Kim, have at it. Love to have you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the intro, and it's been such a fun experience so far partnering with your program. So I'm excited to have this opportunity to see some new faces and get a chance to dig into work that I love with a new group of people. So just a quick introduction of me that just so you kind of know who I am. This is, I live up in Soda Springs, so I'm a local person here. In addition to the experience I have listed here on the slide, I also manage the Kingvale Lodge, which is a wonderful place if you ever want to stay up in Kingvale. And yeah, I bring a lot of experience around facilitation and coaching. The last 20 years, I've been working a lot in the education sector, and then also in the nonprofit sector, as well as coaching across all sectors. So really excited. Some of my specialties are working with new executives or emerging leaders as a leadership coach. So that's some of the work I do. And then I also do a lot of facilitation of meetings, offsites, that kind of thing through my business. I put some interests on there. I will drink coffee all day if it's dark roast. I love walking my dogs around all the wonderful places in Truckee and Tahoe. I've lived here for a few years now, but I'm still learning spots. So if you have all secret local spots that you need to tell me about, please, I'm all ears. And as everybody has probably been experiencing this past year, been getting into some new hobbies. I taught myself how to knit recently using YouTube, which was kind of interesting and fun. And also I recently went gluten-free a couple years ago, and I'm still figuring out how to do high altitude gluten-free baking. So that's been another occupation that I've been pulling during the pandemic. So just to kind of I think there's a lot of folks here who know each other, but some who don't. I'd love if everybody could take a minute to just chat in your if you have a new pandemic hobby that you've also picked up in the last year, love to hear about that. So go ahead and chat it up, and we can kind of take a look at those as we're getting started. I get good ideas from folks in these meetings for different things they've picked up in the pandemic. So again, open up your chat and let us know what you're learning as you are stuck at home this year. Flower pressing. Thanks, Kate. Awesome. Roller skating. I think roller skating has gotten like a national upsurge during the pandemic. So it's pretty amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna, I keep them coming. We'd love to keep hearing from folks so we can get to know who's all here and what their amazing interests are. And I'll start us off. So the objectives for today, for our session today, are here. We really want to, this workshop, I like to think of it as kind of a gift, really, to take this space as a leader to step back and really connect with yourself and your intentions. So these are the outcomes that we're hoping to get to today. So getting a chance to clarify your leadership values, draft a purpose statement, share your values with some folks in the room, and then start to think about how you're going to implement them into your work life. And here's how we're going to do it. Basically, we're going to get through, we're doing a little bit of an intro, and we're going to talk about kind of an overview of why this is so important, and then dive into a little deeper into our values, exploring them. Then we're going to go into purpose statement building, and then action planning for what's next. One important thing just to note, there was pre-work that was sent out, but I understand life gets really busy. So if you did not get a chance to do the pre-work, totally fine, acceptable, we understand, but we need to know. So if you didn't get a chance to do the pre-work before, that will dictate what breakout room you go into. So if you can send Karen Wilcox a private message now, in order to let her know, like, hey, I didn't do the pre-work, she's going to be creating the breakout rooms. So that's a little bit of a logistic. Again, if you didn't get to the pre-work, that's fine. Just make sure you send Karen Wilcox a chat right now so she can factor that into the plans for the breakouts. So if you got that, can you give me a thumbs up? Because that was like an important message I want to make sure everybody heard. Yes. Okay. Awesome. That's my one technical announcement. All right. Thank you very much. So we're going to jump into just set the norms. This is a group that has worked together. Some of you have worked together before, some have not, but we're not really under like an agreement together, in terms of confidentiality and other things. So I wanted to just set some norms for the group, and then just see if we can all agree to those. So be present is one we want to, as much as possible. I know some folks have to leave early, but staying the whole time and keeping your cell phone out of reach if possible, or at least out of sight, unless there's something emergency that's going on in your life. So you can really be present and be here and give yourself these 2 full hours. Take care of yourself. If you need to take a bio break or you need to turn your camera off, that's fine. Just do what you need to do. And then be vulnerable in context. So we have, like I said, this is a group that doesn't know each other super well. Maybe some of you do, some of you don't, but we don't have a kind of existing confidentiality contracted agreement. So I think on the other side of that, pushing yourselves to be vulnerable and kind of open is really important to like grow your leadership skills. So what I like to say is kind of the context for vulnerability here, kind of a cafe share level. So what you might talk about one-on-one with somebody in a public place that could get overheard is kind of the filter to use for how we're vulnerable with each other today. And then step up, step back is to sort of, if you're hearing your voice a lot, maybe step back so the other voices get in. If you haven't said anything, go ahead and push yourself to step up and participate again. And then finally, just being respectful in how you participate. So muting your microphones when you're not talking, and then considering your words in terms of their impact on others, and just trying it on. So if you're a little skeptical about something that we're talking about, try it on and see how it feels. So does this all sound good to you? Then go ahead and you can do the thumbs up response here. I don't have everybody's camera, so if it's, yeah, awesome. So those will be our norms for today. I think I saw some thumbs ups. Yeah, cool. And thanks for chatting that in, Emily. So yeah, awesome. Well, I'm really excited to get started. So let's do it. I want to go into a little detail about why I think this topic is so important. I really like to use research-based frameworks whenever as much as possible. And so to guide my work. So one of the ones that I really like is Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. Some of you might have heard of it. It's pretty famous. It's been around for a while, but it's something that really helps when it comes to thinking about leadership. And what it does is it explains how much more effective leadership can be when we start with the why. So can I have somebody unmute and just read this quote on the slide?
I'll read it. I'll step up.
Thanks, Janelle.
Inspired leaders and organizations communicate from the inside out. Simon Sinek?
Yeah, Simon Sinek. Yeah, and he has a TED Talk that where he talks about this. But yeah, so Simon Sinek has basically he's saying start with the why. His why is in the middle of the circle, and then you kind of make your way out the circle, right? So if you can start with the why and then get to the how and the what, you're going to be a much more effective communicator and leader. Is the way the framework works. So his why, Simon Sinek's why, asks organizations and leaders to start with kind of what is your cause, what do you believe, and what he's found is that's way more motivating than what do you do and how do you do it, the sort of technical side of things. In his famous TED Talk, he actually talks a lot about different examples of this, whether they're organizations or leaders themselves. And he talks about Martin Luther King Jr., for example, who inspired obviously lots of people to take action during the civil rights movement. And he points out that it was the I have a dream speech, not the I have a plan speech, right? So thinking about when you're communicating, that why really resonates and speaks to people in a way that the how and the what, isn't going to grab them. So all of that to say, it also works for us as leaders. So we're more motivated when we're in touch with our why, right? Like as we're doing hard work and we're into the world, if we can stay connected to that, then we also keep ourselves motivated. And we also know as leaders, it's really easy to lose track of the why in all of the day-to-day work that we're doing. So today is also just kind of just about regrounding ourselves in that why of what we do, why we do what we do. Basically, that's what our leadership purpose and values are. So I want to hear from you. If you can just go ahead and chat in, what's a challenge that gets in the way? Just one challenge that you can think of you consistently kind of communicating from the inside of that circle out and leading from your why. I'll give us a think minute though. I know that's a bigger question. Thanks, Denise. So fear of judgment could come up. Busyness, Emily, definitely comes in and gets in the way. Potentially like judgment or criticism. Yep. Losing sight of the why, being distracted. Bureaucracy, yeah. There's a lot of factors that can come in. Exactly. So there's a lot that comes into play that can really block this. And yeah, I feel like there's this kind of underscores and highlights the importance of taking this space to do this work when it's really hard to get to sometimes. And I think particularly right now during the pandemic, I think some of that comes up in some of your responses that you shared. It's an extra stressful time right now. We have extra stress at home, especially if you're parenting, and we're, trying to figure out Zoom school with your kids, depending on the school. And then you're also working from home potentially if that's not your normal MO, it's a really big change. And then your company is going through stress. Like there's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of you have to pivot in your work. So what I've seen this past year is like right now during the pandemic with my clients and coaching clients, it's even more important to reconnect to your leadership values and purpose, because things are so stressful. And when we're in a really stressful place as leaders, it's often we stay in the sort of day-to-day tasks and execution mode, and it's really hard to get out of those lists of to-dos in order to really step back and stay connected to what it's all about in the big picture. So if you have clarity on your values and purpose, the impact is really twofold. It positively impacts how you feel and show up at work and how others experience you. So taking this time to really get clear with yourself and with your team about your why and what your experience is and the purpose behind it. The how and the what are going to follow, even if things are hard, if you're having to do new work, or if you have to overcome really great odds like we're all doing right now. So I just say all that to say we should all feel really good that you're carving out this time today for your own leadership growth, and to start with the why. And I hope that you all dive in deep and know that it'll pay off. So I'm just going to start us off in our anchoring around around your why, to focus on the leadership values. So this slide talks about some of the key characteristics of what leadership values are. And it's a pretty familiar concept, but sometimes it's helpful to just sort of break it down. And these are the things that your leadership values really provide. So they're guidance for how you show up as a leader. They're definitely super helpful when you're making decisions, and helping you to prioritize your work. It's also having clear values help you to be more consistent in how you show up as a leader. And then it's the intersection. A lot of times your leadership values are partly your personal values and partly your, how they align with your company values as well. So it's kind of that overlap or intersection. And finally, if you were able to do the River of Life work, that kind of tapped into that last part, which is your leadership values are generally rooted in your personal histories. And they've been through your experience, they've been developed over time. And so here's a few examples of common leadership values. This is not an exhaustive list at all, but it's just to sort of get our brains thinking around it. And leadership values tend to be the bridge between the why and the how. It's our active ways of showing up and working. And many successful leaders will identify 3 to 4 that are their core values. So before we jump in, we're going to spend a little time next in some breakout rooms, just kind of diving into our values. I wanted to pause in case there are any questions here around the definition of leadership values. Go ahead and chat in or unmute if you have a question. Sounds like they're crystal clear values.
Just one question, because I was typing notes. Did you say that the leadership values are the bridge between the why and the how? Did I get that right?
Yeah, and it's kind of like you can get there. They help you to think about choosing them kind of it's like the shape, between why you care about a thing and what's so important, and then kind of how you show up, right? So if you value communication, it's like you're showing up with a lot of transparency and communication as a priority. Does that make sense? So it's a little more active than just and specific from just like, this is why I care. It's starting to get into the what that looks like in action. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to get us started because this next section is this is a really fun part. It's the breakout time. So we're going to spend some time exploring our reflections that you did in the pre-work and learnings, and then help to spend a little time reconnecting with your values. So just to set us up for this, because there's going to be kind of 2 tracks here. For the folks that did have a chance to do the River of Life pre-work, I'm going to talk to you first and talk through what we're doing. Basically, for 30 minutes, we're going to have about 30 minutes to break into groups and share your rivers with each other and explore your values. When you're in the rooms, I just ask that everybody really stick to the norms that we agreed to, and just keep those in mind. And the way it's going to work is if you're in a group of 3, you'll have, this is the timing breakdown. You'll have 5 minutes for each person to share what they did on the river. Everybody else the other 2 people are just silently listening to that. And then they'll get a chance to ask some questions. And also they're listening for what values are showing up, so they can kind of mirror that back to the presenter and say, oh, I heard this. And then they're going to have 2 minutes for the presenter to then get a chance to come back in and just reflect on any insights. And then you'll switch so that all 3 of the group's members get a chance to present. Does that make sense? I'm going to send a protocol out too, so you'll have this in front of you. So this is just the overview. And then I'll also send some timing prompts out. So when you're in the breakout rooms, as a reminder to switch people and stuff like that. So that will help, but it would also be good to just keep an eye on the time yourselves. And then if you need help in your room, if you get into the room and you're not sure, you can ask for help via Zoom, and I can pop into the room and check in on you. Otherwise, I'm just going to give you all the space to do your thing. So, and then if you did check, Karen, that your river is not done, which is totally fine, as I said, you'll be put into what's called the work zone. So in that breakout, it's going to be a place where you can mute your camera and spend 30 minutes actually doing the river assignment, to like just right now. So you'll have a chance to experience that. So does that all make sense to everybody? Any questions about what's happening next? I'm going to chat out the protocol for breakouts right now before we launch the rooms. So give me 1 second, everyone. Hold on, I think there's people in the waiting room, Karen, just as a side note. Okay, I'm going to chat this out. So this is the protocol for those that are in the breakouts that are going to be focused on sharing the river. And then if you're going to be focused on the pre-work, then the second link is for you. So that is the pre-work link. Did everybody did the chat go through? I feel like I should re-chat it in case those people that just joined. So the protocol is here. And then the pre-work is here. Okay, I'm not hearing a lot of questions coming in, so either I confused and lost you all, or we're ready to go. Do we feel pretty ready for to jump into breakouts and dive in? All right, I see some chat. Thanks, Jacqueline. Jacqueline's ready. All right, so Karen, I think we're ready to launch the breakouts. And I will, like I said, I'll send you all some timing updates, but otherwise encourage you to dive in deep and use the peers that are here.
Kim, I may have done something incorrectly, but I did do the pre-work, but I was just invited to the work zone. So I don't know if I messed something up. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, I'm glad you said something. I think Karen can switch you, or maybe I can. I don't know if I'm the host yet.
So
Karen?
Sorry, who was that?
Emily
Emily
Blackmore.
Blackmore.
Let me switch you to four. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Megan.
Hey there, sorry I'm late.
No worries, no worries. The one question for you right now is, were you able to do the pre-work?
I did read through it. I'm not sure I'm ready to present in a triad, but I could be a listener in a triad if that's helpful.
Kim, what would be better?
Otherwise, I'm happy to just be on mute and wait for folks to come back. I I literally just finished a training that I was running for folks. So I'm super comfortable in Zoom and whatever role you want to put me into.
Well, I was going to say what the folks that got put into the work zone are getting a chance to actually do theirs. So if you want ideally, you could take the space now to do 30 minutes of just doing the actual river, if that works for your brain. If you're in that space mentally, does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so I have the pre-work PDF, and then I have what you just sent, and I'll just work on that on my own while they're out in their breakouts. That's great for me. Yeah. I'm just glad to be here.
Awesome. And I think what I sent should match whatever you printed, hopefully, for pre-work. So yeah, no stress on that. Thank you.
Perfect.
Megan, I'm going to send you to the work zone. So just join that, and it's all on your own, but just join that one, okay?
Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks.
Good
there you go. Ginger. Okay, Denise. Oh, Megan, did you?
I think she's gone. Yeah. And Karen, are you good do you need me to pop in anywhere, do you think? Has anybody been signaling that they need help?
I don't see anyone.
It would pop, it would be pretty, it would pop.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
All right. I'm so excited that you're back. I think everybody has to be back. This is the one beauty of Zoom is you can't get lost during transitions during these workshops. We might be tired of it, but it does have some strong suits. So I'm so excited to hear from you all. I want to just kind of open up the floor and hear what this activity was like. So for folks who were in the triads doing the presentations, what was it like for you as a listener?
I found a lot of similarities, coincidentally, to the other, I guess, how not necessarily that we had the exact same values, but the way that you found your values through life experiences, I guess. I don't know.
Interesting. So you're saying the experiences were somewhat similar.
Or no, I mean, in one case, yes. In the other case, no. Out of our groups, I had some similarities, but just I guess the whole process of your experiences turning into your values and how they shaped you. I guess that's generally how life works. But I don't know. I just felt similarities to the people in my group.
Yeah, cool. So the process of how they came up through your experiences was similar. That's really cool observation. Any other listeners want to chime in on what it was like for them?
It's always a little hard to listen because you're thinking about oh, are we taking enough time and all that stuff. So you always have the background noise for me when I listen.
Yeah, active listening can be hard sometimes. What about for presenting, when this is a pretty unique thing to be sharing with other people? So what was it like as the presenters?
Hi, this is Denise. I thought it was an affirming activity because when I was presenting and sharing my river and life experiences, I thought some things weren't as big and connecting to the main thing, but once the listeners were summarizing, they pointed out some things that I was oh yeah, I can definitely see that now.
Yeah, so they were able to hear some of the values that you weren't maybe even noticing at first or didn't pop for you. Yeah, that's awesome. So here, that affirming aspect. Any other presenters want to share what it was like for them?
I'll share that it was interesting to get the feedback on the river, and because I somehow jumped from birth to college and I didn't really write much in between there. And so the question of, well, did you have any leadership when you were younger? And I was oh yeah. So it just was an interesting perspective to think about, when you're doing the activity, there's other stuff that you miss as well. So that was that was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting what stays really salient in our memories, and then when you're kind of pressed with other people's perspective, you're like, oh yeah, that was actually an important moment. Any other folks from either listening or presenting from the triads that wanted to share that didn't get a chance yet?
In some ways for me, it was almost easier to kind of reflect on other people's experiences than my own, like, or reflect on their narration of their experience. I don't know why. It's just kind of interesting to observe in myself.
Yeah. So there's a dynamic that made it easier somehow to listen than to get super reflective. I wonder if after you're out of the spotlight, there'll be like things that come in. It's like in the moment, it might be harder sometimes for this type of work. Anyone else that was hoping to get in?
I was just going to say, I started working on my river during our downtime, and I have 3 pages.
Yes.
So apparently I have a lot. Which surprised me is how much ended up on the green side of my river. You know, we get so focused on the bad things that have happened to us in our life. And as I'm doing this, most things ended up over there with a few squiggles or bridges that went over to the other side. And I just, you know, it's nice to focus on the alternative of all the positives that are in our life, as opposed to, you know, especially now in this time in our lives, all the things that are so crazy.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really good reflection, Lindsay. Thank you. Actually, you bridged us right into the next question of just a more broad, any ahas or nuggets of wisdom that kind of came through this process, whether it was the sharing or even just for the folks that were just working on it just now, like Lindsay was sharing, as you were creating it, anything that popped for you.
So this is Brad. Kind of pathetic, but it seems like negative experiences or people, negative bosses shaped me in a positive way, or made my values go towards a different direction.
Yeah, so the kind of, I don't want to be like that person, so I'm going to do the opposite effect. Yeah, that's interesting. Janelle, were you about to hop in?
No, I was just going to say, he said it's kind of pathetic, and I don't think so at all. I think it's very insightful. And I had those same kind of switches in my river, or at least I think working with people who there's things about them that you're like, I don't want to be that. I think in some ways is almost more, I guess, shaping of you, because you're like, I don't want to be that. I actively want to be something else or to lead in a different way. So I think it's very, it's transformative, I think. So not pathetic at all.
Good catch on the language, Janelle. I think I should have stopped you on that too, Brad, with the pathetic. I think there's something transformative. I like that word around noting when there's something that's a model that you're not, that teaches you something really in that moment, and then to incorporate that feedback and then change. There's a big transformation. So appreciate that. Any other nuggets of wisdom or ahas that folks want to get in and share?
I noticed that every challenging period followed a really positive experience. That going through the challenge introduced me to another path or to a very influential person. So that kind of bounces back and forth pretty consistently. I always get the challenges followed by a really positive time in my life.
Oh, it's so interesting. So what is that telling you now? Is there any instruction in that for you?
I think that sometimes I don't think I go through challenging things when I listen to other people's stories, but putting it down on paper made me see the things that I've gone through and the growth that happens. I think what it does for me is it makes me look at myself and say that I seem to be open to learning something from all of my experiences.
Nice. That's a big insight to take from that. I'm really thankful for sharing that you shared that. Carrie, I think you were trying to get in.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is real similar to what Liz just said, and kind of also going back to what Lindsay was saying about the red and green tributaries, and I also have more green than red, and for that I'm grateful. But even the things that I did write in red, now that I've done that, I look at it and it almost seems weird to consider it something that I put in red, because I feel like I've been able to pull positives out of any life experience that I've had, even if it was challenging at the time. So, you know, there's some things that I couldn't even decide, should this be a red or a green? It was hard, but I learned from it, so it's good. So just interesting to think about experiences and whether or not they were challenging or positive or both, and how to describe them.
Yeah, you almost need like purple, like a different color in there. But it kind of reminds me of what Brad was saying too, around like when there is something that's like a obstacle or challenge, or somebody that you like, a negative model, it's what you do with it really that then shapes who you are and what's next. Okay, anybody else want to get in here?
This is kind of in the same vein as some of the most recent thoughts, but like the challenges were also the periods of growth. Like not a super innovative insight, but like the comfortable periods where I was like, things were easy and happy, kind of in reflection, I was like, well, that was not a period of personal growth. And I maybe, I had a good time, but maybe I didn't learn a lot from it. And I don't kind of look at that as like a pivotal period of time.
Yeah, like you need those bumps in the road to sort of shape who you are and kind of give you that grit that it takes to get through life, right? It teaches, there's something about learning that comes up for me in those moments. Like I actually learned a lot about myself through that, and therefore I actually value it, even though I wouldn't have chosen to go through that if I had the choice, right? Yeah. And there anybody else who hasn't spoken yet that wanted to pipe in?
Yeah, I kind of noticed between the three stories that there was a little bit of similarities with points in life and age. And there seems to be like a point in life where, some seeds of what would happen in the future, where like with career growth and direction was happening in college, or, there was like, a professor or something like that. And then kind of like around the same age, getting to a point of self-awareness and awareness of others, and like how to work with personality types. And so it seems like, this is kind of what you do in your 20s, you kind of do this in your 30s, and then, there's probably going to be some continued similarities, I think, between life paths.
Yeah, there's like it's kind of a comfort in some ways, like, oh, we kind of have a group here that's doing this. That's really a good observation. Thanks, Kate. So I think just this last question is kind of getting at the values piece. And I know when I do the river the first time, the values didn't pop, like, I'm like, I don't know what they are. And then you dig back into it. And that's why it's really nice to have someone to listen to what you're saying and help you find those. But hopefully some of them started to show up for you and you're able to kind of start getting a little list going of what those values really are. I'm curious if anybody has thoughts about like what might change for you if those things that are coming up were really central, or maybe they already are central for you, and then you can speak to that. Sometimes it's like just a reaffirming, like, yep, I'm doing stuff.
I would think that I have to remind myself what my values are when I'm in my leadership role and it's challenging. I have to remind myself to go back to my values. and that guides me. It would be nice if that was more consistent and more, I don't want to say natural because they're my core values, so I feel like they're naturally there, but they don't always come out when I'm in a challenging situation. So it would be nice if in the future that would come to me more easily than having to like always step back and go, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But that just might be the way it is. And depending on whatever challenge I'm facing, you know, I might need to go back and tap into some values that I don't always have to use. But that's what I would think for the future.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really insightful. I think it is those times of stress when, you know, sometimes you go into, sometimes they stay present and sometimes they just like, it's hard to remember them, right? Things are so chaotic. Anyone else want to reflect on this one?
I think what Liz just said, yes, yes, yes. And I think like the question is, you know, what might change? I think if I can, you know, really use those values as my North Star, I think on the backside of that, when I don't, I always feel it when I don't, like I'm like ashamed of myself or embarrassed or disappointed that like, I know I'm not that person, but yet I was, or that's how I showed up. I think it could almost in a way like build my confidence to, I guess, lead with those values first if I do that more, because I'm not sure if that makes sense, but
it does. Yeah. It does. You get some affirmation there. Kate, are you jumping in? Or
yeah, I might actually play devil's advocate a little bit, and that maybe I shouldn't follow my values necessarily because I might go to the extreme on those. So like if I'm a highly independent person, am I that because of my past work, you know, did all my past experience make me highly independent, or did I choose my job options because I like independence? And can I go too far with that? And to like be aware of it and like consciously select to work more with others in order to balance that like part of my personality.
So it's kind of like, this is my value, but do I want to overuse, like, what does it look like if I overuse that and maybe take it too far? And just so checking yourself in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
kind of going against my values in a way, or against my nature or experience.
That's an interesting one. I haven't heard that before, in the idea of like going too far into it, but I can see what you mean, at least with that example. So something to keep in as a frame as you're thinking about next steps towards later on in the workshop too, just, you know, what does the next step look like within what you're imagining? So hopefully everybody had a chance to kind of come up with at least one value that they're feeling really good about, because I'm about to have you put it on blast and chat. So if you can, everybody take a minute and chat into the chat any values that you've landed on so far through this process, that you either maybe you already had them and you dusted off your list through the river of life activity, or just now in your reflection you are kind of getting more clear and naming them. So go ahead and list any that you feel really confident are kind of in the core top 3 or 4 that you definitely want to use. And as they're coming in, once you've written yours, go ahead and take a look at what else is coming up in the chat for other people. I love it. Everybody's taking a stand and sharing out what they're where they're landing, and there's some amazing I always get so inspired just reading people's values and want to like get to know this whole room of amazing people that where these are the things that they care about. That's awesome. So keep adding and adding to the chat if you didn't submit yours yet. And I'm going to just move us into the next section. So thank you all for really engaging in that and working together to really take advantage of this group. I'm really excited to keep moving forward with this the rest of the workshop. So now that we've clarified our values, we're going to focus in on the other part of this workshop, which is really on our leadership purpose. So leadership purpose sometimes it's talked about as like a personal mission statement. So you might have heard it referred to as that. I like to keep it in the leadership realm because that's really where we're at today with this workshop. And it is a clear personal mission statement. It's why you do what you do, and it's something you care about, and it fits hand in hand with your values, hand in hand, like they're kind of synergistic. Your leadership purpose is the why for what you do. So it's sort of the background information on why you're in your job that you do, why you live where you live. It's everything. It's like what you care about the most. And it's also, this last point is really key here. It helps you to live in integrity is what I like to say. It's aligning your behaviors with your values, right? So by having clarity of your purpose, you have that personal integrity. And so it's a North Star that really aligns your day-to-day actions with what you actually believe as a person. And your purpose can and does often change over time. So you just kind of went back through your river of life. If you wrote your purpose statement when you were, 15 years ago, it probably would be really different from what you're thinking about today. So it definitely changes as you have new experiences and grow as a person. So what we're going to do, I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about, give some examples. So this next slide has some examples of some famous people, you might have heard of them, their purpose statement, their leadership purpose statement. So I'm going to give you just a minute to read the 4 on the slide. And as you're reading, go ahead and pick the one that stands out the most to you, that speaks to you. All right, so can I get 2 people to share which one they picked and why it stood out to you?
I'll go. I think the Molly's, I can never say her, Malala, I can never say her last name, Yousafzai one. I want to serve the people and I want every girl, every child to be educated. That one kind of speaks to me the most, not necessarily because that's the exact same purpose that I have, but the service part of it, both for people and for the environment, for myself, because I'm in environmental conservation work. And for every girl, every child to be educated, I think is somewhat similar to, for me, like every person to value the earth, or every person to have the opportunity to get to know the earth and our environment. Awesome. And service.
Good. You have some good inspiration for when we're going to do our draft of them in a second, so you can get ready. Anyone else want to jump in? A second person that can share which one stood out to them and why?
I'll jump in. This is Carrie. Oprah's quote about being a teacher, I think, is the one that I can relate to the most. I have worked as a teacher in a variety of different ways for many years of my life, and right now I'm not working as a teacher at all, but I still feel like everything that I do and anyone that I am around, I can, in a way, still act as a teacher just by trying to lead by example. be a good person and do good things. And therefore I'm, in a sense, still teaching anyone who's happens to be around me.
Awesome. Thanks for that reflection, Carrie. That one stood out to me too, as a like, well, I think she's a teacher. Interesting. Like, I love that lens for, we all know that's probably not Oprah's day job right now. So it's pretty cool that she thinks of it like that. So I'm going to move us into the next, like the kind of breakdown of what the parts of a leadership statement are. So generally consists of 3 parts. It's what do I want to do? Who do I want to help? And what's the result, or what impact or value will I create? So there's the 3 pieces that you want to try to get into a leadership purpose statement. And so with everything else in our minds that we just kind of surfaced with our values and what we care about the most and what our why, our personal why, as Simon Sinek's circle, was talking about, we want to take a minute just to kind of do a really quick rough draft 1 sentence of a leadership purpose statement for yourself. So if you don't have access to like a piece of paper, or you can pull up something on your computer screen that you can type into, we're just going to have a sort of quick draft session in just a second. So go ahead and grab that if you need to. And so building off of your values clarification, again, the prompt is, what is your 1 sentence? It could be 2 if you need it to be, purpose statement, leadership purpose statement. And then if it helps you, these 2 sentence structures can be really clarifying and just kind of give you some parameters. Or you can feel free to go rogue and just keep in mind those 3 elements that I just shared. And I can go back to that. The what I want to do, who I want to help, and what's the result. So the options on the sentence structures are pretty clear, but it's basically to use my blank to inspire / lead blank. So that blank, that's option 1. And then the second sentence would be, I value, and then blank, you list what you value, because blank. And then to do this, I will blank. So you kind of figure out that. Sometimes those are helpful just to frame and start it. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to start drafting your leadership purpose statement. Right now, you can feel free to turn your camera off if you want nobody to watch your thinking face, that's fine. But just go ahead and take a stab, the first draft. 30 more seconds to wrap up your very first draft of this. All right, so now this is challenge by choice, because I know we had 3 minutes to write your, maybe feeling less than confident about your 3-minute version of your purpose statement, but I wanted to give this opportunity if anybody wants to read the draft that they have out loud to the group. Love to hear a couple of examples of where this group is in terms of their purpose statement.
Okay, I'm just gonna go.
Yes.
So I said to use my empathy and hard-won conviction / courage. I couldn't figure out which one, but to use my empathy and hard-won courage, conviction to inspire others who might be struggling to overcome challenges so that they feel affirmed, supported, heard, and inspired.
Awesome. Thanks, Janelle. Anyone else want to say theirs out loud?
To use my passion and knowledge for forest restoration and collaboration that will inspire and motivate community stewardship and build a workforce of professional experts and organizations to make the Sierra a safer, healthier, and more resilient landscape. Mine was pretty specific into like my career, so.
Yeah, oh, I love it. It's so inspiring. I want to hear all of them, but okay, we got time for 1 or 2 more. Anybody else want to jump in?
I'll go. This is Brad. To lead with positivity, integrity, and pride, to achieve the highest levels of service and standards.
Nice. I love it. We got some values in there showing up. Anyone else that was just dying to do this? I'm impressed. Y'all are really brave to jump up to the microphone with a very fresh draft in front of your new peers that you've just been with for 90 minutes. So thank you all for sharing who jumped in. And just to think about it, this is just some prompts. We're not going to discuss these, but just thinking about it, if you did share, how did that feel to say something publicly like that? And then if there's any other insights or learning that provided just by saying it out loud, seeing how it sounded, or listening to your colleagues share, what did that do for you? So just leaving you with those questions. We're not going to dive into them here, but I wanted to make sure you had them as things to kind of close up that activity. And next, we're going to kind of pull together and think about the now what of all of this in some theory to practice work. So what is theory to practice? I apologize because I'm an educator person, so I use nerdy language like that sometimes, but theory to practice is kind of like the now what, right? So how do you go from, I have this list of values and purpose statement to I'm at my job and I want to figure out how to make my work life reflect those things and have my why at the center of what I'm doing. So when I was I'm going to tell a quick story, which is personal and quick and hopefully gives a little bit of an illustration of this. So when I was managing a team at a previous job, it was a new team, and I had just done a similar values reflection exercise and realized one of the values that came to realize that I really valued was collaboration on teams, because I know when collaboration is going well, it makes it a much more rewarding and fun place to work. So I took that lens as I was thinking about setting up my new team to be collaborative. And so these are some concrete steps that I did in that position to really infuse that value of collaboration. First, I rotated my weekly meeting facilitation so that everybody took turns when they were meeting. When we were meeting, so everybody, we shared the mic in those meetings to kind of model collaboration. I also prompted members to seek peer input. When they brought questions to me, I would send them to each other instead of just answering it, so that there would be more collaboration on our team. I would highlight bright spots around collaboration in our team meetings so that we kind of built that into our culture. And then I would reflect every month with my manager on how collaboration was working on my team. So that's a really quick example of some of the strategies I took to really go from theory to practice with the core value of collaboration. So now it's your turn. I wanted to spend the last part of our time together to really, think about the dimensions of leadership that you could use to then start taking your leadership values and purpose and putting them into from theory and then putting them into practice. So basically, what are the action steps that you can take to really apply this new clarity about your why? So before I kind of let us loose to do some action planning, I wanted to give some prompts of some different dimensions of leadership that you might consider when you're thinking about action steps to put onto your plan. So the first would be existing systems and processes. This is always where I start. So what am I already doing that I just could tweak a little bit and it would just be that much more aligned to what I care about and what drives me. So the example I shared was rotating the meeting facilitation. We already had a weekly meeting, but I decided if everybody was leading it instead of just me, then it would create a more collaborative culture, which is what I cared about. Communications, so there could be opportunities of upcoming email blasts or newsletters where you could kind of take this new lens to it and really think about how am I going to infuse my values and my purpose into what I'm saying in this upcoming communication with your team or your colleagues or your organization. I'm not clicking, sorry. There we go. Projects and events. Another thing that could be coming up, there could be an event or a project that you could just use your values to shape and design how you're doing it. So kind of like a prototype of like, okay, I don't always do this for everything, but I'm going to try to like use it in every step of this project. I'm going to think about this lens of what I care about and bringing my why to the center. And then finally, you could also think about the dimension around personal ways of working. So are there any opportunities in your day-to-day ways of organizing yourself, like how you do your morning routine or things like that, that could further align with your purpose and values? So for example, if one of your values was reflection, being a reflective leader, you might introduce a journaling habit or something like that, that you didn't already have going on. So what do people think about these dimensions? Any questions about the sort of areas that you could consider to include in terms of your next steps in action planning? All right, I'm going to take it as full comprehension because there's no chats coming in. Awesome. So we're going to have about 10 minutes right now to really start an action plan that you can obviously continue to work on following our session. If you're a Google Docs person, I have this as a Google Doc, which I'll chat out. Otherwise, it's a pretty simple format that you can just go ahead and write it in a piece of paper, and that's just fine. But essentially, what I imagine would be helpful is to put your purpose statement at the top, whatever draft it is, that version that it is, and then list out a few of your values on the left-hand side that you landed on, which it sounds like we have some amazing ones in this group. And then just start with each one value at a time and think about how can I incorporate this in the next week, in the next month, and the next 6 months. So just really simple strategy, maybe building off of something that I shared around those dimensions or something totally different that comes to mind. But just to give yourself some concrete steps that you're going to take on how those are going to look in your day-to-day. And I'm going to put 10 minutes on the clock. Like I said, I'll give us a 5-minute and a 1-minute warning. And before we start though, are there any questions? All right, I sense that we're diving in. So go ahead and go for it. And I'll give you some time checks shortly. And you're welcome to keep your camera on or go ahead and turn it off if you need a break. 5-minute warning for action planning, just in case you're not looking at the chat. One more minute to wrap up your planning. All right, everyone, if you muted your camera, go ahead and join the room. We're just going to close out these last 5 minutes. So after, I know 10 minutes might not be enough to finish your entire plan, but hopefully you got a start on it. And some of the reflection questions I have here are really to do for homework. So think about once you have a plan that feels like it's complete, going back with the lens of, what support and resources do I have that I can then will help me stick to this. Maybe it's somebody in this group that you want to do some accountability with, you reach out to each other. You also, what barriers might get in the way? And so thinking about taking that lens to your plan as well. So you can kind of plan around your own barriers, whether it's, you might forget your purpose statement, so you're going to put a Post-it on your desk or whatever it is. What are the things that might get in the way? So take that lens once you've finished your work. And for this group, I also am offering a free 30-minute session in 6 months time. So if you want to sign up for that, there'll be an email after. I'll send an email out to everybody and you can click to sign up for that. And that's another way that you can have some accountability for your plan. So if you want to do that, be happy to do that and meet with you. And so we're just about wrapping up. Karen, I want to have a minute for folks to, if you want to unmute or you can chat in one thing that you're taking away from the session today. And also Karen's going to send a chat out with a link to the feedback survey for today's session. So we would love for you to just do it while you're here in the room. So if you can multitask, I want to hear one thing that you're taking away right now, either unmute and share or chat it in. And then once the link gets shared out, go ahead and complete that quick survey. Who's got a nugget of wisdom or a takeaway that you want to share? Thanks, Emily. She says it's okay to have my leadership values to be a work in progress. And that's totally true. I love it.
I would say that I don't know if it's really a nugget. It's kind of all encompassing for me. Some of the things that you pointed out on focusing on one of your values and how to work on them in a week, in that timeline to check on yourself. It's something that I've been trying to figure out. How do I keep track of the things I'm trying to work on? So your action plan really helped me lay out some of those things I've been trying to implement with my team, but it will help me really keep me focused and tracking my progress.
Nice. Awesome. That's what we like to hear, that there's the next step, right? Because you can go to a nice workshop and think some stuff and then it goes away. So the goal is for that not to happen. Anyone else? I see some other stuff coming in. Emily in the chat says, remembering my why and strategically planning to hold myself accountable for turning my why into a how and ultimately into a what. I love it. Anyone else have one that they want to throw out there? And thanks if you already clicked on it, but don't forget to do the survey if you didn't. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Karen. She has a couple words to just close us out for the session. But I just want to say thank you all. I would love to stay in touch if you want. That's my email address. But also, like I said, I'll send a follow-up email to everybody, just an email to appreciate you again. And this group is fantastic. So I super appreciate your participation and leaning into this.
Thank you so much, Kim. This was wonderful. Really appreciate you coming out today. And we're going to see you again in 2 weeks. So can you tell us a little bit about the remote and hybrid team meeting? And I just wanted to say, one of the reasons that we're doing this revamp is that we think that as things open up more, that hybrid team meetings are going to be something that we're going to see more and more and more. And so we wanted to focus on that and give you some new tools on how to create these new team meetings. So Kim, can you jump in and just tell us a little bit about what you're going to cover in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really based in a more tactical way. You know, what are the strategies you can do to manage your team, whether it's a hybrid or a fully virtual team, and thinking about your meeting structures and different strategies within them that maybe can actually up your game and really keep your team moving forward. So there's going to be definitely a lot of concrete action planning built in through it. So there's a lot of application. So there'll be some concepts and then thinking about how you can use it. Yeah, hopefully that helps.
Fantastic.
And you're welcome to email me if you have more questions about it, if you're deciding if it's the right fit for you.
And then our very own Shannon Beats, our beloved Shannon Beats, is going to be teaching the managing in these changing times and introverts and extroverts as leaders. So if you wanted to sign up if you haven't signed up for any of those, just go to Tahoe-Truckee-leadership.com and hit the events or calendar tab, and that'll get you there. There is pre-work for each one of these. And so look for an email from me regarding the pre-work. You're also going to get an email from me with the exit survey, and then one more email from Kim just following up on this workshop. So I want everybody to stick around. Oh, come on. But I am going to just